Next. Who are our students? Next. Unpacking all students. So many times in education, we create programs and strategies with the idea and hope that we are serving all students. We struggle to serve a variety of students, either because we don't know how or what approaches to use. Sometimes we simply aren't explicit enough about the all and what that really means. In the following slides, we will share a protocol to unpack the word all in order to examine who and what we mean and how to design educational approaches that can get us closer to all students. Next. The challenge then, if we want to say we are serving all students, is to develop programs that encompass all of these categories. The hope is that this will bring a clearer focus on what is meant by all, and that you will be more strategic, make more strategic decisions from that perspective, understanding that there is no single strategy that can cross all cultural demographic categories.
I'm going to jump in here and just let everyone know on that last slide that that's a QR code. So if you're watching this recording, um, you can get to our Unpacking All toolkit item.
Yep. So this is a protocol that I use. And the reason this is really important is because, when we say all students prepared for a bright and successful future, or we're impacting all students, I don't I believe that we have to be really intentional and strategic about what the all means. And so a lot of times I think we categorize our students and we really don't unpack who the all is in our school. So this protocol to me is very critical, and I use it with my leadership teams. I use it with my staff. I use it with my parents and my community members. And I also use it with my student advisory council or any affinity spaces and students that I work with. And it really is about breaking down who the all is. And I found that a lot of people enjoy doing this activity, and it makes them think differently, because then you have to be really thinking about who the all is. Once you know who the all is, I think you could be a lot more strategic about the decisions you're making that impact all students. So for example, if we break down what I find a lot of times, oh wait, I have a question down here.
I was going to say you can finish your thought if you want, and then we
And
can
then okay.
get there.
So what I find a lot of times, even when we're doing this activity, is that folks want to break people up in, like, and I say do it racially, gender, intersectionality, and also culturally. So we might have, for example, if we have skater kids, or athletes, or choir students, that's one way to do it. But the other one is racially. So instead of saying all BIPOC students, which a lot of times people will list BIPOC, well, that's another form of marginalization, right? We're not all the same just because we're people of color. So I need folks to break that down further. When we talk about API students, we are talking about students that are Japanese, or students that might be from the Chuk community, or Samoan students. So it really is different, and they have different cultural experiences, and they come with a wealth of knowledge and beauty that we really need to tap into. And when we label students under just BIPOC, we're missing so much. And we really are missing ways that we can be strategic and intentional about serving them. The same when we say ELs, it's not ELs. We have students from Russia. We have students from, Cuba. We have students from Somalia. We have students from Mexico. So it's very different, and we really need to be thinking that way. Okay,
All right, so I'm going to jump in with Nina's question here.
Okay.
How did you prepare students to be such active agents of their learning? Was there specific preparation, or did this happen because of the voice and accountability they were given?
So it did happen I believe with the voice and so it started with the voice and the accountability, and then it spreads out. So I'm that way also with my staff. I'm very much about distributed leadership and empowering my staff. That includes my administrative assistants, my custodian, my classified staff that work in the classroom, and my certified staff. So that permeates throughout the building. And then we have other staff leaders that take students in. So for example, I had an equity committee that included students and staff. We had the staff meeting once a month, and then the second meeting would be with the staff and the students. And so they created a student advisory committee, and they created lessons for students. They wanted to do equity by students for students. And then they work with the adults to make sure that the lessons are good and that they're being reflective and all of that stuff. And so I think that students, what happens is when you give students a voice, and and they know that they're being trusted, that they're valued, that they're seen, they then take these initiatives and take off with them. And whenever I do a principal's advisory council, it is for them to share their voice with me, to give me advice, to help guide the work that I'm doing, and give me feedback. But it's also for them. It's not just, it's to empower them to also be agents within their school to change the culture of their school. So they take on a project, for example, and I'll talk a little bit about some of those projects that kids have taken on later on in the series.
Yeah, and that will be great. I'm going to read you a question from Maddie as well, but I think you'll get to some of that later. But she's
Okay.
wondering if you can provide examples of lessons or ways that students have created around equity. So I think use another word, definitely we'll get at that you'll get at later. But I don't know if you have
Um,
any other thoughts around that.
I do. So our students did a lesson on intersectionality. Um, so I mean, in my last job, obviously as I've gotten older and as I've practiced these strategies more and more, they get better and better. So in my last administrative role, I was able to, they did some amazing work on intersectionality, on LGBTQ and intersectionality, on um, microaggressions, some wonderful stuff. And I can look for some of those presentations. They were really well thought out. They created PowerPoints and presented them to school wide. So it was really cool. So that's just around equity, but they really delved deep into that. Equity, diversity, and inclusion was one of our core values at Milwaukee. And so that is something that I'm very outspoken about. And I speak about that with my staff every single staff meeting. Equity actually was our professional development group, did all of our equity team did all of our professional development. Now, we would put grading under our equity team. We would put curriculum under our equity team rather than the other way around, which a lot of buildings do, which is we have our curriculum team, we have our grading team, right? And then we put equity on the side, kind of like, and now we're going to do an hour of equity training. So I flipped that, and we do everything is around equity, and we embed everything under that.
Love that. And yes, if you have examples or things, we'd love to kind of get a story or maybe just some steps for how you and your students did that. That would be great to share.
Yep. Okay. I'll share more towards the end about just some different big things that kids did, and then we can open it up just to have a back and forth dialogue. So here's just
Definitely.
walking through people. I get them. I have folks break up into groups, and then they get chart paper and they start to list, spend 5 minutes thinking about all the students in their school environment, and they create a list and they present. So they spend 10 minutes reflecting and asking themselves these questions. Once they've created the list, they examine the list, and they talk about which groups are being served the best within your current school system, who is being underserved by your current approaches, what are the unintended consequences of that, of students being underserved, what strategies are you using now that come close to serving the needs of all students, and are they culturally relevant? A lot of folks, when they do that activity, are like, oh my gosh, we are leaving out so many kids because they are not being, they want to include all kids, but they're not thinking about how to do that in a different way. So this is very like intentional, and I think gets to the heart